Hey, everybody, and welcome to a deep dive that could seriously change how you look at your relationships.
Yeah.
It's all about boundaries.
Ooh, I love
We're
it.
talking all about boundaries, when to say yes, how to say no to take control of your life.
Great book.
It's by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend.
Those guys know what's up.
You know, when you hear self-help, it can be a little bit like, ugh, another one.
Right.
But this one is full of great real-world examples
Oh, yeah, for sure.
and even uses some biblical wisdom.
Interesting.
It's really insightful.
I'm excited to dive in.
So we're going to help you understand
Yep.
what boundaries are, why they are so important, and how to actually start setting healthy ones
Love it.
so we can take control of our lives.
Yeah, what I think is so interesting about Cloud and Townsend
Yeah,
is that they aren't saying build a wall and shut everyone out,
right,
you know?
right.
It's more about figuring out your own personal space.
Yes.
Like property lines,
All
so
right.
you know where your responsibility starts and stops.
So it's like knowing where your lawn ends and your neighbor's begins.
Exactly.
You don't want to water their grass while yours is drying up.
Exactly. You're wasting water and energy.
Right. And that's where the book gets really useful.
Yeah.
Because it talks about different boundary problems that people run into,
Okay.
like what they call compliance.
Oh, yeah. The compliant.
What is a compliant?
Well, compliants are people who have a really hard time saying no,
Oh, yeah.
even when they know they should.
I know a few of those.
They're usually scared of letting others down,
Oh, good.
or that people will leave them if they aren't always pleasing them.
Ooh, that's deep.
Yeah, it's classic codependency.
Okay.
When you need to please others to feel good about yourself,
Wow.
you end up hurting yourself.
Yeah.
The book talks about this guy, Robert.
Okay.
He always gives in to his wife's demands, even when it puts their finances at risk.
Oh, no.
It's not about being selfish.
Right.
It's realizing that saying yes all the time can really hurt you in your relationships.
Makes sense.
Then you have the controllers.
Oh, boy.
These are the bulldozers.
I've met a few.
They just run right over your boundaries.
Yikes.
They don't respect limits
Oh,
and often manipulate or even get aggressive to get what they want.
oh, gosh. Yeah, I know the type.
Like that boss who calls you at all hours.
Ugh. Or expects you to work all weekend.
Every weekend.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Okay.
These are the people who need to learn to respect other people's time and space.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, and we can't forget about the non-responsives.
Okay, what are those?
These are the people who are just emotionally checked out,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
distant and withdrawn.
Well,
They just avoid tough conversations or
Yeah.
shut down completely when things get rough.
I see.
So the people they are in relationships with end up feeling ignored and unimportant,
Yeah.
which leads to feeling isolated and frustrated.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got the people pleasers,
Yeah.
the bulldozers, and the emotionally distant.
Exactly.
How do we even end up like this?
Well, the book goes into childhood development
Interesting.
and how it impacts how we understand boundaries.
Okay.
They talk about three main phases: hatching, practicing, and rapprochement.
Those are some big words.
I know, right? Hatching is the first one.
Okay.
It's that early stage when babies start to realize they are separate from mom.
Oh, wow.
Like the first inkling of me versus you.
So these early experiences really do matter.
Absolutely. It's like laying the foundation for everything else.
Wow.
Then comes practicing,
Okay.
the toddler phase where kids test all the limits.
Oh,
They're all about no.
I can hear it now.
It's so important for them to develop a sense of self
Okay.
and learn to make their own choices.
So we need to let them explore a little.
Yes, of course parents need to give some structure,
Of course.
but letting them push back a little is crucial.
I'm just picturing my niece covered in finger paint
Oh, yeah.
saying, no bath.
Exactly.
It's messy, but she's figuring things out.
Exactly.
So it's not all about just saying no.
Right.
It's also about learning that we need other people.
Yes.
We need healthy interdependence.
Exactly. The book really emphasizes that setting boundaries isn't about shutting everyone out.
Yeah.
It's about building healthy relationships where everyone feels respected.
I like that.
Now, the third phase, rapprochement,
Okay.
it's where things get a little more complicated.
How so?
Kids start to realize they aren't all powerful
Okay.
and need mom and dad again.
They come back around.
Right. It's like, I can do it, but I still need you.
Oh, that's sweet.
But sometimes those early childhood experiences aren't so great.
Right.
The book talks about Jerry.
Okay.
He has a really hard time setting boundaries
Oh, no. Why is that?
because his mom was physically abusive when he was a kid.
Oh, wow. That's awful.
It just shows how those early experiences can make it so hard to have healthy boundaries as an adult.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's why it's crucial to understand how those experiences shape us.
Yeah. And to find support if we need help with boundaries.
Where can people find support?
Well, the book talks about having a secure base,
Okay.
like a supportive family
Okay. Well,
or a strong faith community,
yeah.
maybe even a good therapist.
Right.
It's like having a safe space where you can explore and practice your boundaries
I love that.
without being judged.
A safe haven.
Exactly.
I like that a lot.
And that secure base is so important when we start talking about actually setting those boundaries.
So how do we do that?
Well, the book lays out some practical guidelines.
Okay.
They call them the 10 laws of boundaries.
10 laws? Huh.
Sounds intense.
Well, they aren't like rules you have to follow.
Okay.
More like guiding principles.
Okay. To help us be more intentional in our relationships.
Yeah, you mentioned biblical wisdom before.
Right.
Some of these laws draw on those principles,
Okay.
but in a way that anyone can apply them.
That makes sense.
But like the law of sowing and reaping,
Oh, go
it's
ahead.
all about consequences. It says that if you constantly let people walk all over your boundaries,
Oh, yeah.
you're basically teaching them that it's okay. It's not about blaming yourself.
Right.
It's about realizing that our actions, or even our inaction,
Yeah.
have consequences.
It's like that kid throwing a tantrum in the grocery store,
Oh, yeah.
just to get that candy bar.
Totally.
You might get a little peace and quiet in the moment,
Right.
but you're also teaching them that tantrums work.
Exactly. Which brings us to the law of responsibility.
Okay, what's that one about?
This one is all about remembering that you are responsible for yourself,
Okay.
for your choices and your well-being.
Okay.
We can't control other people,
Right.
but we can control how we react to them.
That's easier said than done,
I know, right?
especially for those of us who always want to help or fix things.
Exactly. And the book says we need to let go of that need.
To fix people.
Yeah, to fix, to rescue, to control.
So it's more about focusing on ourselves.
That's where the law of power comes in.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It reminds us that our power is within us.
Okay.
We have the power to choose, to act, to set boundaries,
Okay.
but we can't control other people.
No matter how hard we try.
Exactly. Trying to force things just leads to frustration.
Yeah, you just end up resenting them,
The book says to focus on what you can control.
which is ourselves.
Exactly. Your choices, your responses.
Okay,
Let go of the idea that you can change other people.
I like that.
So we talked about consequences and responsibility
Right.
and our own power.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the law of motivation.
Okay.
This one is all about why we're setting boundaries in the first place.
Okay.
It says that our motivation should be love and responsibility,
Okay.
not fear or guilt or anger.
I feel like that's a common trap.
It is. It's easy to set boundaries because you're afraid or you feel guilty,
Right.
but that's not healthy.
So it's more about protecting ourselves and our relationship,
That's a great way to put it.
not punishing people. We were talking about a secure base earlier.
Right.
I feel like if we are coming from a place of fear,
Yeah,
our boundaries will be all messed up.
that's a great point. And that's where the law of evaluation is so important.
Okay, tell me about that one.
This law says we need to constantly check in with ourselves.
Hmm.
Are our boundaries working?
That's a good question.
Are they helping us create respectful and healthy relationships?
Okay.
Are we living more authentically and peacefully?
I like that.
If the answer is no, then we need to adjust things.
It's like checking in with ourselves and our relationships.
Exactly, making sure our boundaries are doing what they're supposed to do.
So how do we actually set these boundaries?
Well, the law of proactivity is key here.
Okay.
This one reminds us that we need to be active in our lives.
Not just letting things happen to us.
Exactly. Setting boundaries means making choices,
Okay.
communicating clearly, and taking action.
So we don't just sit around and wait for things to change.
No, we take ownership of our lives.
I love that.
It's about moving from feeling like a victim
Right.
to feeling empowered.
Yeah.
You have the power to shape your experiences and your relationships.
So how do we tell people about these boundaries?
That's where the law of exposure comes in.
How many more?
This one is all about being open and honest about your boundaries.
So does that mean telling everyone we meet about them?
No, not necessarily, but
Oh.
it does mean communicating your needs clearly and assertively.
When it's important.
Yes.
So we can be assertive without being a jerk.
Exactly. It's all about balance.
The book talks about more laws,
It does.
but I think these first 7 give us a good foundation
Definitely.
for understanding how to set healthy boundaries.
And it's important to remember that they all work together.
Yeah, like pieces of a puzzle.
Exactly.
Speaking of fitting things together,
Yeah,
the book talks about how to apply these principles to different areas of life,
it does.
like marriage, parenting, work, friendships.
It's so important to remember that boundaries look different in different situations.
So we can't just use a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. You need to be flexible and understand the nuances of each relationship.
Okay, let's start with marriage.
Okay.
The book talks about the importance of having boundaries,
Yeah.
even when you are one flesh,
Right. You are still two separate people.
with your own needs and wants.
Exactly. You need your own space, your own interests, your own sense of self,
So it's about finding that balance.
between togetherness and individuality.
Yes.
The book encourages couples to set boundaries around all sorts of things.
Like what?
Finances, time, emotional energy, even wants and needs.
Oh, all?
Like maybe each person has their own bank account,
Okay.
but they also contribute to a joint account for shared expenses.
That makes sense.
Or maybe one person needs more alone time than the other.
Okay.
That's totally fine as long as you talk about it openly and respectfully.
Communication is key.
Always.
The book talks about this couple, Bob and Nancy,
Oh, yeah.
where Bob has a hard time saying no to Nancy's spending habits.
Oh, no.
He feels bad saying no
But he eventually realizes that he's actually hurting their relationship.
by not setting boundaries.
Exactly, and hurting their finances, too.
It's a classic example of how saying yes to avoid conflict
Yeah.
can backfire big time.
Yeah.
So setting boundaries in marriage isn't about being controlling.
No, not at all.
It's about helping both people thrive
Exactly.
and be their best selves.
So they can contribute to the relationship from a healthy place.
I like that a lot.
So now let's talk about parenting.
Okay.
This one is all about raising responsible kids.
Okay.
The book makes a distinction between discipline and punishment.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Discipline is about teaching and guiding.
Okay.
Punishment is about inflicting pain or control.
I see the difference.
So we want to help our kids understand consequences
Okay.
and make good choices.
That makes sense.
The book says to set clear expectations
Okay.
and enforce them consistently.
But also to give them choices,
Yes, age-appropriate choices, of course.
right?
And then let them experience the consequences. It's like, choose your battles wisely.
Right. We can't control everything they do.
But we can give them the tools to make good decisions.
The book compares two kids, Jimmy and Paul.
Okay.
Jimmy's parents let him disagree and set limits.
Okay.
He grows up confident and resilient.
Good for Jimmy.
He knows how to handle conflict.
Awesome.
Paul's parents get upset when he tries to set boundaries.
Oh, no.
He ends up a people pleaser,
Oh, man. That's rough.
afraid to stand up for himself.
It really shows how much those early experiences matter.
Yeah, it shapes how we handle relationships for our whole lives.
So it's not about being a dictator.
No, not
It's about creating a safe and loving environment
exactly.
where kids can learn and grow.
And become themselves.
Okay, so we've talked about marriage and parenting.
Right.
What about work?
Oh, work is a big one.
How so?
It's so easy to get burned out.
Yeah, you have to set boundaries to protect your time and energy.
And your sanity.
Seriously.
You need to be able to say no to unreasonable demands.
Sometimes that's hard. It is, but it's a sign of strength, not weakness. Right, it shows that you respect yourself and your work.
It's about being realistic and prioritized.
Exactly, and communicating clearly.
The book gives the example of Lori.
Oh, yeah, what happened to her?
She had a hard time saying no to her colleagues.
Oh, no.
She ended up feeling overwhelmed and resentful.
I've been there.
So she learned to prioritize and delegate,
Good for her.
and she got way better at communicating her limits.
Did it help?
Yeah, she got control of her time, felt less stressed, and enjoyed her job more.
That's awesome.
It's a good reminder that boundaries help everyone.
Yeah, it makes the whole workplace more enjoyable.
Okay, so what about dealing with a difficult boss?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, some bosses just don't respect boundaries.
It can be intimidating.
But we still need to advocate for ourselves,
Absolutely.
even when it feels scary.
The book gives some good tips.
Like what?
Document everything.
Okay.
Talk to HR.
Yeah.
If it's really bad, maybe even look for a new job.
It's important to remember that we deserve respect.
Yes, regardless of our position.
We have the right to create a good work life.
One that aligns with our values and priorities.
And we can't forget about personal relationships.
Oh, yeah, those can be the trickiest.
It's hard to set boundaries with friends and family.
It is.
Those emotional ties can make it so hard.
The book talks about separating from our families of origin.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we are adults now,
Right. We can make our own choices.
even if our families don't agree.
So we can be independent while still loving our families.
Exactly. It's about healthy boundaries.
So we apply the same principles.
Yeah, clear communication, setting limits, protecting our well-being.
It's important to remember that we can't change other people.
but we can control our own responses.
And protect ourselves.
What about people who really need help?
That's a tough one.
The book says that setting boundaries doesn't mean we can't be compassionate,
Okay.
but it does mean recognizing our own limits.
And not enabling unhealthy behaviors.
It's about finding that balance.
Between being supportive and protecting ourselves.
Exactly.
So we've talked about setting boundaries.
Yeah.
But what about the resistance we feel when we try to do it?
Yeah. It's like we know we need to do it,
Yeah.
but something stops us.
It's like an internal alarm bell goes off
Yeah.
when someone pushes too far. But
right.
then we just ignore it.
Why do we do that?
Why do we resist setting boundaries?
Even when we know they're good for us.
That's a good question.
I think fear is a big part of it.
Okay.
Fear of all sorts of things.
Like what?
Fear of losing love.
Okay.
Fear of being alone.
Right.
Fear of conflict.
Yep.
Fear of disappointing people.
It's like we are afraid to rock the boat.
Yeah, we worry that if we set a boundary,
Yeah.
the other person will get mad or leave.
Or just reject us completely.
It's like we think our worth depends on how much we please other people.
It's like we are afraid to say no
Right.
because then people won't like us anymore.
Exactly. And then there's guilt.
Oh yeah, guilt is a big one.
We feel bad putting our needs first.
Yeah. Especially if we are used to always saying yes.
And then we feel guilty for feeling resentful.
When our boundaries are violated.
It's like we aren't allowed to have negative emotions.
Even when they are justified.
That's where self-compassion comes in.
Okay.
It's about giving ourselves permission to feel those things.
Ooh.
They are normal. They are human.
They're telling us something.
Exactly. They are a sign that something needs to change.
So we use those feelings
Yes.
to set better boundaries.
The book has some practical advice for overcoming that resistance.
Okay.
One thing it says is to really acknowledge what you are afraid of. What are you letting go of?
Okay.
What are you scared of losing?
By admitting it to ourselves,
Yeah.
we can work through those emotions.
It's like grieving a loss.
Ooh.
You can't move on until you acknowledge the pain.
It makes sense.
And the book also says to focus on the good things.
That will come from setting boundaries.
Exactly what will you gain?
Yeah.
How will your life get better? Will you have more time, more energy, more peace?
Yeah.
If you focus on those good things,
Yeah.
you start to see boundaries differently.
Not as a punishment.
Right. They become a gift.
A gift to ourselves.
Exactly.
But we don't have to do it alone.
Right. The book talks about finding support.
Okay.
Talk to a therapist,
Okay.
a friend, a family member,
Yeah.
maybe even a support group.
I like that.
It helps to have someone to talk to
To process things with.
and to keep you accountable.
It's like having a personal cheerleader.
Yeah, someone to remind you that you are doing great.
I love that.
And the book talks about forgiveness, too.
Okay.
Not condoning bad behavior,
Right.
but letting go of the anger and resentment.
It's hard to do sometimes.
Yes.
But it's for our own good.
Exactly. Forgiveness frees us from the past.
So we can move on.
Now, how do we know if it's working?
If our boundaries are working.
Yeah, the book says success isn't just about saying no.
Or avoiding fights.
It's about becoming more mature,
Okay.
learning how to love and work well.
And finding peace.
Yeah, it's about responding instead of reacting,
Making choices.
instead of feeling trapped.
It's a journey.
It is a journey of growth and change.
We won't always get it right.
That's okay. It's about learning and adjusting as we go.
Being kind to ourselves.
And to others.
It's like learning to ride a bike.
Yeah.
We might fall a few times.
But eventually we get it.
We find our balance.
And we can enjoy the ride.
That's a great analogy.
So as we finish up this deep dive into boundaries,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I want them to remember that boundaries are a gift.
Yes, not a burden.
They help us to be our true selves.
They bring freedom, connection, and joy.
Setting boundaries is a journey worth taking.
It's a journey of self-discovery and healing.
Coming home to ourselves.
So as you think about everything we've talked about today,
Yeah.
ask yourself, where do I need to set better boundaries?
What's the first step I can take?
Start creating those healthy fences
Those protective gates.
that will allow you to truly flourish.
In every area of your life.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring boundaries with you.
Until next time.
Take care.